I'm Alan Torgerson. I was born in Garden City Township, Blue Earth County on October 15th, 1929. My parents were farmers, and so I grew up on a farm south of Lake Crystal, and graduated from Lake Crystal High School in 1947. And then farmed with my parents until I went into service in June of 1951. And took my basic training at Fort Riley, Kansas, and advanced infantry training there, leadership school. And then went to Korea I left here in February of 1952. Arrived in Korea April the 4th, 1952, and went online April 14th, which was Easter Sunday of 1952. Served in Company B, the 38th Infantry Regiment, the 2nd Infantry Division. We came offline about a month after I arrived there, and we went down to Kojido, which was an island on just off the south coast of Korea, and there were about 80,000 communist prisoners of war there, and they had been having riots and uprising. They'd even captured one of our American generals, holding him hostage. So our 38th Regiment was sent down there to help sort things out and get everything under control again. And so we were there about 2 months, I believe, or maybe between 2 and 3 months. Then we went back online for in the old Baldy area of the MLR. And then we were online for a while, and then we would go into reserve and for retraining and resting, and then we would replace another division for about 3 or 4 months. And I was transferred to headquarters company of the 38th Regiment in I believe it was July of 52, and promoted to first sergeant of that headquarters company in October of 1952, and that was my main service until I rotated out in last part of March, first part of April of 53, and returned to Camp Stoneman in California, and then to receive my discharge in Colorado. Can't think of the name of it right now. Fort Carson, Colorado. Farmed with my folks for a year or so, and then I married. One of my school graduate. We had known each other all our lives, I guess. And we farmed for 3 years, and then I went to work for, well, I worked for a year for Elko Products and drove semi over several state area. Then I went to work for the Blue Earth County Highway Department in 1959 and operated equipment and for till 71, and I was promoted to maintenance supervisor for the Blue Earth County Highway Department and served there for in that position and for 20 years. Retired in 1991. Retired during the big Halloween blizzard. But my replacement was well trained and was able to take over. Everything was ready to go, and it was a good time to leave.
The war was already going on, and then you got drafted.
Yes.
What was kind of going through your mind at that time?
Well, I guess I felt that I should do my duty. I still firmly believe that everybody should have a couple of years of service, whether it be in armed services or some type of type of community service, or what do you call it, when they go overseas to...
Like Peace Corps?
Yeah, something like that. Some type of service. I think everybody should. And so it was one of those experiences, like you've probably heard many others say, that you wouldn't want to do it again, but you wouldn't take $1 million for the experience. Thankful that I survived.
Where did you first arrive in Korea?
We landed at Seoul at the seaport there for Seoul. Yeah. And we rode old boxcars for, 40, 50 miles till we got to replacement company for the 2nd Division.
What kind of things did you guys do when you were off duty?
When you're in a situation I'll call it a war because it was a war. I called it police action, but it was a war. When you're there, you're never off duty, really, in my opinion. And even when we were back in reserve, there was still just everyday Army duty, and I was promoted to first sergeant of the infantry company, and that involved everyday duty every day. I mean, there was no... The only break we really had was when we did go on R&R for 5 days to Japan. And I did have a couple of days off where I went into Seoul, and there wasn't much to do there. The city was then destroyed more or less, but there was an Army PX there and stuff, so... And if you did have any spare time in camp or online, I played some cards.
What did your duties look like?
My duty? Well, As first sergeant, you're pretty much responsible for everything that goes on. We were short of officers, so you had to perform some of the duties that your lieutenants would have performed if they had them, but we were just real short. It included everything from getting everybody going in the morning to who was sick or injured or wounded or whatever, and just keeping everything going.
Did your duties change at all? You said you were online and then you went to headquarters company. How did that compare as far as what your normal duties were?
Well, that wasn't a lot different for the actual change from B company to headquarters company as a corporal, and I was promoted to sergeant then, and I was but then becoming first sergeant that was a big change, of course, in your responsibilities and duties and all was a big change. You weren't just one of the boys anymore then. We did have quite a few South Korean soldiers that were assigned to the company too, because we didn't have enough Americans to fill out the company, and this was the practice that there were so many, they call them KATUSAs, Korean Augment Service for, it worked with each company, and I had some real good friends with the South Korean soldiers too. They knew what they were fighting for.
What was it like working with them? Was there a language barrier or?
Yeah, there was some, but there were enough of them that knew some English that you could communicate, and if some of the we call them rock soldiers or Republic of Korea soldiers, couldn't understand why they had buddies that would tell them what to do or what was expected. You know. We had some of the rock soldiers that were assigned to our company had been in a rock ranger. They had been rock rangers, and for whatever reason they were disbanded, and we received some of them, so I was glad they were friends and not on the other side.
Why is that?
Well, like I say, they knew what they were fighting for, and they real good soldiers. If you're fighting for your homeland, hopefully it'll never happen, but if war came to America, it would be a lot different. Everybody would know what they were fighting for. And I guess the end results is so evident with the South Korean people today that even we invite some of the South Korean students from the college here too when we have an occasion and that, and they'll give a short speech at Veterans Day program and at the Memorial Day program, and these are grandchildren of the ones that were our age when the war was actually going on, and they're still so appreciative of America and what was done because South Korea now is no comparison to North Korea, which it probably would have been if the United Nations hadn't stepped in. A good example is the Kim family in the cities. I don't know if anybody has mentioned it. They have a picnic and program in appreciation for Korean War veterans every year. They've had 11 years now that they've been doing that, and they have just put on a good program and a lot of food, and it's they're still so appreciative of what America did for them. And one picture that we had around here, I don't think I've got it right now, but it shows North and South Korea from way up above at night. There are a few lights around Pyongyang, the North Korean capital. Otherwise, the rest of North Korea is dark. South Korea is lit up like State Fair. The whole country is. So I think that it says a lot right in that one picture. I thought says a lot.
Have you had a chance to go on any of the revisit trips?
I'll tell you, I did not go. For quite a few years, I just didn't have any interest in going, I guess. And now I wish I had, because just to see the progress and the difference now from what it was when I was there. But I'm too old. I wouldn't try that long trip anymore now. I got too many physical ailments.
What does Korea mean to you now?
Well, I'm glad that I could help them to achieve what they have achieved. I guess to keep communism, I guess, but put it plain and simple, to keep communism from spreading, I would go again, even though I can't, I realize physically, but I feel strongly enough about it that I would go again to preserve our country's freedoms.
How did your wartime experiences affect the rest of your life?
Well, it makes one appreciate life a lot. And it's a learning experience, maybe some good, some bad, but mostly good, I think, in developing a person's character and goals.
Do you have any, like a piece of wisdom or a message that you would like to pass on to younger generations?
Well, I guess appreciate what we have in our freedoms, and do your duty.